Good morning. This is Mark Johnson from Loyalty360. Hope everyone's happy, safe, and well on this Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening, where Daniel is. I want to welcome you back to another edition of Loyalty Live. In this series, we talk to the leaders in customer channel and brand loyalty about the technology trends, best practices that impact a brand's ability to drive unique engagement, deeper experiences, with the goal of ultimately having deeper customer loyalty. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Daniel Shkedi, the product marketing manager at Forder. Daniel, how are you today?
I am great. How are you?
Good, thank you. It's for those who don't know, Daniel's actually dialing in, or should I, video from Tel Aviv, correct?
That is correct. Tel Aviv, Israel. Yep.
Excellent. What time is it there?
What time is it? It is 8:31 right now.
8:31. Good. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today. Looking forward to learning more about Forder and what you guys do.
Sure, my pleasure.
So on that note, can you tell us a little bit about Forder, what the company is for those who don't know, kind of what you guys do and how you do it?
Sure. Forder is the industry leader in fraud prevention. Specifically, in the past, we actually started in the e-commerce space. And obviously, as time progressed, we moved on to other platforms and other industries. And we currently processed over $150 billion in online commerce transactions, right? Basically providing fraud prevention for that volume. So we offer an integrated fraud prevention platform that is tailored for enterprises and merchants and provides, accurate real-time decisions across the customer journey. So maybe I should say just a word or two about our platform capabilities. First, 100% of customer transactions and touch points throughout the customer journey receive real-time automated decision. Basically, the decision says approve, decline, or escalate, and basically providing some indication about the trustworthiness or the risk level throughout the online session. Secondly, we provide a comprehensive suite of fraud and abuse solutions that cover a wide range of use cases. So it can be payment protection, policy abuse, account protection, payment optimization, and obviously loyalty protection that we will focus on in this session.
Absolutely.
And finally, our platform employs, different technical capabilities such as probabilistic linking, proxy piercing, behavioral analytics, and advanced cyber intelligence to tackle fraud and cyber threats at the earliest stage possible.
Okay.
So that's kind of in a nutshell what we do.
Excellent. But obviously having a great fraud prevention tool is more and more important in kind of traditional credit card transactions and the banking transactions, but more and more in the customer loyalty space. I know we've looked at your technology a couple of times. You're very robust, very unique in how you approach. So it is becoming more and more impactful for those who have customer loyalty programs, correct?
Yeah, that absolutely. And again, we are seeing more and more activity. And when I say activity, I mean fraud and abuse in this space. So, but I'm sure we can talk about that very soon during the session.
Great. So can you tell us about your role at Forder, what you do and how you do it?
Yeah, so I am the senior product marketing manager at Forder. And again, as you mentioned, I am based in Tel Aviv, Israel. Our Tel Aviv office has most of the research and development teams, product management, and a few guys like myself as well. So I wear many, many hats, but I'd say that most of what I do is at the tangent between marketing, sales engineering or pre-sales, and product management. And more specifically, that means, taking new products to market, basically product launches, competitive intelligence and market research, product positioning, gathering requirements from buyers or partners or industry leaders, and incorporating their feedback in the product roadmap, building technology demos, thought leadership, and also spearheading Forder's dark web threat intelligence program. So I'm pretty busy.
That's good. One of the things we like to do is ask a fun fact about those re-interviewing. So, it could be we've had people that have been left on the doorstep of a kind of an adoption agency when they were a year old in Vietnam, and people who like to do into gaming, those who like to deep sea sailing. And what is something fun about you? Something fun, something you.
A fun fact about myself. Well, I love music. I love to listen, play, and also write music. I've been playing bass and electric guitar for now 20 something years. I played in a few very unsuccessful bands back in the day. But the real fun fact is that I'm a metalhead, and I'm in my mid 30s, and Megadeth, Metallica, and Dream Theater are still my favorite bands. So I think that's the fun fact here.
Okay. What about Five Finger Death Punch? Do you like them?
They're in Spotify. Yeah. I mean, I've heard of them. I listen to them occasionally, but I would say that again, they're not my top five.
Okay. All right. I've kind of started listening in the summer. I'm a big country music guy, but I'm a big fan of some of their ballads, very inspirational ballads, kind of meaningful ballads about a number of different political topics we won't go into here, but yeah, I would check them out. They're good. And I'm a country guy, but I like the Five Fingers, so they're good.
Nice. Cool.
So we talked about your company, what you do, how you do it. What does customer loyalty mean? How do you define that for yourself and for Forder?
What does customer loyalty mean? Well, I'd say that customer loyalty, in my view, is a consistent, positive online experience among customers, right? Not only does it make them return to your program over and over, it also gives them a reason to spend more money, bring their friends and family members, right? I'd also say that customer loyalty, in short, is also sort of a social contract, so to speak. And what do I mean by that? Customers are basically saying, hey, we will give you our business, we'll give you, our traffic over and over again, as long as you, as the merchant or the enterprise, create a sense of trust and protect our personal data and our accounts. So it's kind of a give and take situation.
Okay. Interesting. And I think loyalty fraud in gaming, both program gaming, internal gaming by people who run the programs or have access, that's becoming a bigger and bigger concern, as you mentioned earlier. Can you talk about that from a definition perspective? What that means and kind of what you're seeing at a high level with regard to kind of program fraud and gaming?
Sure. So here are a few definitions, right? There is loyalty fraud and there is loyalty abuse or policy abuse, right? Or you call it gaming. So let's start with fraud. Fraud is 100% criminal activity, right? Such as it could be account takeovers, basically attacks by fraudsters that leverage multiple methods. It could be automated attacks like brute force attacks. It could be manual attacks, basically, kind of a trial and error method of using stolen credentials until the fraudsters are able to hack into the accounts. It's stealing funds or credit card information and so on and so forth after that. And there is new account fraud or account opening fraud. And that is a situation, or actually multiple situations, where fraudsters, they create fake loyalty accounts. Now, occasionally they're leveraging stolen identities or synthetic IDs, making it much more difficult to detect these types of attacks. And finally, there is payment fraud or transactional fraud, and that is basically, fraud at checkout. So after these fraudsters, they hack into the accounts, they can use credit cards or other payment instruments that are linked to the loyalty accounts and perform fraudulent transactions, basically buy stuff and then resell them. Oh, we can talk about that a little later. And then there is what you guys call gaming or what we call policy abuse, right? which in terms of severity, it's less severe than fraud. It's not really criminal activity. It's basic situations where legitimate users are violating various business policies in order to receive benefits or rewards, right? But they're exploiting loopholes in the system. So it's a tricky situation because on the one hand, they're legitimate users. They're part of your loyalty program, but they found loopholes in the system and they're exploiting them to receive all sorts of benefits and rewards. It could be sign-up rewards, it could be referral rewards, it could be coupons, it could be promos, and so on and so forth.
Okay. So when you look at kind of the risk parameters, obviously they're changing pretty significantly. You know, we've done a number of interviews with you, just kind of look at your platform. We've done some analyst assessments, as you mentioned, very robust and very unique in kind of its approach. And what makes a brand at risk for fraud in gaming, and how are some ways that they can kind of address that potentially earlier on? Are there some warning signs or factors that brands and organizations should be cognizant of?
Yeah, so I think we need to take a step back and essentially ask an even more fundamental question. And the question is, why have loyalty programs become a target for fraudsters, right? Why are these accounts being attacked in the first place? So we know that loyalty fraud is skyrocketing, right? Over $1 billion every year in indirect and direct losses from loyalty and reward fraud, right? But there are a few reasons behind this surge. So first, I'd say that in recent years, loyalty programs, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, have evolved considerably, right? And they're offering more valuable benefits. So the abundance of redemption options increases the real value and liquidity of points, right? The second reason is that loyalty programs in, when it comes to fraud prevention and cybersecurity have lagged behind other services. For instance, financial services, banking or credit cards and stuff like that, making these programs an easy target for fraudsters, right?
Right.
The third reason is that there's a very, very kind of wide attack surface. Loyalty fraud involves attacks at various touch points throughout the customer journey. Essentially, from sign up, when the user enrolls in the program, and once he has an account, then from login to log out. It could be, at login itself or post login touch points, for instance, I don't know, changing personal information or adding a payment instrument, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a very, very kind of wide attack surface that needs to be protected. And most of the solutions out there are protecting only I don't know, checkout or login or something like that. So that's another reason why most of these programs are at risk. And finally, I would say awareness, right? The threat awareness is very, very low among just, most of the population, right? So, I always like to give the following example. Like I think I have 7 loyalty accounts, and it could be, online e-commerce platforms or frequent flyer programs and stuff like that. I think I collectively check them maybe 10 times. But whereas like my bank account, I check it every other day. So I think most people can relate to that. So it's important to increase awareness to the problem and understand that, if you're not preparing for this, then you're at risk. If you don't have any defenses in place right now, then you're already exposed in the sense that there may be attacks or fraud MOs that are launched against your program already.
Okay. So you mentioned some of the kind of the challenges that you see out there, how it's coming more impactful. What are some of the impacts or potential consequences of loyalty fraud gaming for brands today? Is it trust? Is it obviously there's financial repercussions as well? What are some of the impacts or consequences that brands could face if they're not more focused on the fraud and gaming aspects?
Yeah. So loyalty fraud has a detrimental effect on business, right? And I'd say that we can really focus on a few customer pain points. So first, tarnished brand reputation, right? We talked about trust. So, when loyalty accounts or loyalty programs are hacked, then reputation and customer trust, that we talked about earlier, takes a hit.
Right.
So that obviously is eventually translates into less revenue or increased operational costs, which we'll talk about in a second, more detail. Then there's stifled business growth, right? So personally, I spoke with so many customers in the past. They told me, before COVID, they're like, we want to launch new programs, but we have a serious fraud issue right now, and we cannot expand our business until we fix this problem. We find the right fraud solution to reduce the fraud rates, and then we can actually expand our business. So it is hurting growth, right? And I mentioned this earlier. So obviously we're talking about lost revenue, right? So, we talked about the trust aspect and the brand reputation aspect, but there's another aspect which is important, and there's lost revenue because in many loyalty programs, for instance, if points or rewards are stolen, then by fraudsters, obviously, then the program has to reimburse the customer after a certain process, right? So essentially, the program is losing twice. They're losing the points or rewards that were, granted to the loyal customer, and then they have to reimburse them for that. So obviously, that has a detrimental effect on the top and bottom line. High operational costs. Obviously, the current systems are not catching the fraud. I think I saw a survey a while back that says that 60% of merchants or enterprises, feel that they don't have adequate resources and tools or systems to prevent loyalty fraud. And that results in high operational costs because what they do is they buy different solutions that aren't a comprehensive solution. And sometimes they even purchase like manual review supporting support tools, right? And that's a totally unscalable situation. So they're spending more and more money on these tools instead of having an integrated platform approach. And that's very, very costly for their business.
Okay.
Yep.
And why is loyalty fraud becoming, a bigger issue for brands today? And you kind of talked about a few pieces of advice. Why is it becoming so important, so impactful? Why the growth, and what should brands be doing to help address, the growth and challenges that exist?
Right. So I think that it really has a lot to do with, again, with threat awareness. I think that in the past, there wasn't much talk about this type of fraud, and programs weren't really focusing on that. Now, more and more companies are talking about this. They're launching products to solve these types of problems. So I think the next step is definitely, going to be C-suite execs and leadership in these organizations, gradually understanding that the threat is real and it is getting even worse. especially in the COVID environment, by the way, and we can talk about that. So I think it's high time for these organizations to adopt new technologies and more comprehensive technologies and platforms to effectively stop this type of fraud.
Okay. So you talk about COVID-19, some of the challenges you're seeing there. What are some of the challenges you're seeing around COVID-19 and brands asking you pertaining to fraud or maybe more customer loyalty in their marketing strategies in general? You talked about some of the impacts that fraud can have on kind of brand, the goodwill, kind of marketing efficacies. What are your clients asking you right now that they may not have been asking you last year?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are a few macro level trends, right, during COVID-19. First, we are seeing rapid migration to digital channels in e-commerce, right? So our customers are talking to us more and more about scalability and operational excellence and providing them the most competitive SLA, service level agreements in the market, right? And just a few examples, like if you have to provide a risk decision in under a split of a second, I mean under 500 milliseconds, then you have to have operational excellence. Now, think about doing that on Cyber Monday or Black Friday, when you have such an influx in traffic and all of that. So it becomes very, very challenging. So there's the engineering excellence, the operational excellence, and that's something that we are constantly working on with our engineering teams, along with our customers to reach even better results. And we're really pushing that bar high. I'd say that the second issue is new accounts are up, right? So we're seeing, again, going back to the migration to digital channels, last time I checked, new accounts in loyalty programs and that we are protecting, they're up anywhere between 20 to 25%. So that's huge, right? The account ecosystems that we have to protect right now are much larger. So that requires us to, again, it's kind of a continuous process, but to perfect our accuracy and push it even higher and find new ways to detect fraud MOs and cyber threats. And that's something that we work with our customers and we have a great conversation with them over it. They're like, hey, we spotted an attack, or we have a suspicion. Can you guys about a certain MO in this area? Can you guys look into that and stuff like that? Us being fraud experts, we have the capabilities to actually look at the data and identify new ways of detecting these types of threats. Also, we use dark web threat intelligence to actually, collect information on the fraudsters' intentions. Like we do this even before they launch the attacks. So we have a few levels over here of fraud prevention, but the real point is that we work very, very closely with our customers on this, and we have a great conversation with them, about new threats and new ways to prevent those threats. So.
Okay. What do you think is the next big new thing for customer loyalty, customer experience? Something that can have can help with customer loyalty and impact the positive experiences and kind of customer engagement in a unique way?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that reducing friction, user friction, is key. And what do I mean by that? I think that fraud prevention is great, but it's totally, it misses the point if there isn't a perfect balance between security and fraud prevention and positive customer experiences, right? So that's a real important issue. I'd say that merchants, enterprises, loyalty programs, they have to find platforms that are able to balance between both. basically reduce customer friction and provide, positive online experiences, and at the same time, provide more security, more trust, and obviously less fraud and risk to their customers. And they have to do that at the same time. So it's kind of a balance, not an easy balance to strike, but it's important to focus on that. And I think that's the next big thing, so to speak.
Okay. One of the questions we like to ask is called our CMO challenge question. Basically, if you could ask a question of a competitor, a technology provider, a brand, a series of customers around customer loyalty, customer experience, what would that question be?
So I direct the question to all relevant customers or organizations with loyalty programs. So enough evidence has amassed to support the fact that loyalty fraud is skyrocketing. And it's becoming, much more difficult to catch these days. So my question is, why not protect your most loyal customers? So I think it's high time, because again, it seems, very straightforward, right? But it's a legitimate question, because so many different merchants out there with loyalty programs, they have zero protection, and many others have just very kind of primitive and inefficient methods or tools in place to stop fraud. So my question is, again, I'll repeat it, why not protect your most loyal customers when you know everything that you know?
Okay, that's a good question. Interesting question. Very focused on what you do, but yeah, it's a really question. Why aren't they doing that? That's quite interesting. And the last question we have, what can we do as a trade association for the industry, brands and suppliers to help, you on your journey or others on their journey? What are some things that we should be focused on at Loyalty360?
So I'm a firm believer in the power of the network and networks like Loyalty360. So just getting together, having meetups, webinars, sharing information, sharing battle stories, so to speak, from the trenches. I think that is super important, especially during COVID, because we're seeing so many different new trends and new types of fraud, and I don't think that we fully understand the impact that this is having on our business yet, or the long-term impact. So just getting together and sharing information is just so important. It's really, really key and really important.
Well, that's great. We're trying to do more of that. And obviously sessions like this are very impactful as well. Just to get your perspective, since you are on the front lines and you're seeing some of the impacts around program fraud, gaming, and most importantly, how it should be addressed, and how it should be addressed in a simple and measurable manner is very important. So, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. It was very interesting to hear, what you guys do and how you do it. For those, especially I think for those who haven't heard it. Again, thank you very much for taking the time, especially at this late hour in Tel Aviv.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
All right. And thanks everyone for listening, and we'll be back on Friday. Thank you.